clearly, we haven't spent a whole lot of time in the last week and a half, certainly, on talking about foreign affairs, and this is a key part of being the president. I mean, when you're in charge of the United States, you are the person who speaks for the United States on matters with interrelationships with other countries. And despite the fact that there is a lot of contentiousness between Republicans and Democrats on a lot of issues, there actually is some agreement, according to our next guest, on foreign policy. Republicans and Democrats actually are pretty much, if not in lockstep, certainly have areas where they can be in agreement. Mark Green is with us now, former ambassador, former congressman, and the senior director of U.S. Global Leadership Coalition, and joins us. Thank you for being here. Welcome back to POTUS.
Thank you. Good to be with you.
So Republicans and Democrats, yes, they can agree on things. Where in foreign policy do you see areas of concert, I guess, between the two parties?
Well, I think there's certainly agreement on the importance of development and diplomacy, so-called smart power in this world. You know, it was President Bush who first recognized the importance of development and diplomacy and actually included it as part of national security funding and actually mentioned it in his national security plan. So, you know, he recognized the importance of smart power in providing security and in hopefully avoiding the use of hard power, our forces. And I think that recognition has continued into the Obama administration. I think there's general consensus now, both sides of the aisle, that these are awfully important. It's important for our national security, it's important for our national economy, and it really is a key part of America's power in this modern world.
Maybe if you could define for people who aren't familiar with it, smart power, the concept, the idea, and the theory behind what that's all about.
Well, smart power is really the combination of hard power, obviously the traditional use of the military, with our tools of development and diplomacy. And we recognize in these modern times that the Cold War is over, that our greatest threats come not from other superpowers, but from failed states and fragile states and poverty-enhanced diseases. And instability in this world is a dangerous thing for us. And so when we're smart in how we use development and diplomacy and deploy those tools, you know, we can help to address some of the conditions that all too often are exploited by extremists, all too often provide sources of instability and threats to our national security. That's smart power.
How do you absorb, and how should people who are going to vote absorb the language that they hear on the campaign trail this year? Because Mitt Romney has been very hawkish, if you will, in his assessment of our relationship with countries like Iran, even China. And one wonders if that would be the same kind of position he would take once he actually were to sit, if he were to get the presidency, if he sits in the Oval Office. It may be more difficult to him to toe that very hard line.
Well, you know, certainly I think, again, there's general agreement that America needs to lead in this world. America needs to be engaged in this world. And so part of that is making very clear where we stand and what we stand for. I think certainly when one sits in the White House, when one sits in the Oval Office, you recognize the full breadth of the challenges that we face and hopefully the full breadth of the tools that we have to deal with those challenges. So, you know, on the campaign trail, there's naturally a lot of talk, and there may be differences of opinion on the details of how we would use our power. But I'm very confident that regardless of who sits in the White House after November, we will continue to build upon these smart power tools that have proven so successful in recent years and so important for our future.
Former ambassador and former Congressman Mark Green with us. He is now a senior director of U.S. Global Leadership Coalition. And since you have experience both in the legislature and as an ambassador, I can ask you if you sense, for example, with the falling of Richard Lugar by the wayside, one of the more moderate today, by many measures, Republicans, somebody who worked with the president on national security and issues like that, if you think that is a rejection by the public at large of that kind of approach to whatever problems might face the country, international or otherwise.
Yeah, no, I don't think so. You know, when I take a look at certainly the analyses of the Lugar race, you know, foreign policy didn't really play a big role in that election. And I think it's an overstatement by those who think that the so-called rise of the Tea Party is a rise in withdrawal from the world. Again, I think there's general consensus that we need to be engaged, whether it be for economic reasons, 95% of our potential customers live outside the borders of the United States, or for national security. You know, we're all, of course, aware of the tremendous cost to this nation of the use of our military, costs in financial terms, but obviously the far greater costs in terms of our young men and women in uniform. So despite some differences in rhetoric, perhaps, I think everybody has a general sense that we need to be smart in how we deploy all the tools of national power and national security. And so I don't think that these issues really played much of a role in that race, at least from what I can tell.
Is this a net loss, if you will, for the country in terms of having somebody with his level of experience and immersion in foreign affairs? He was ranking on the Foreign Affairs Committee in the Senate, and you wonder if that is going to be a big loss.
Well, certainly, Senator Lugar was a great statesman. I told many people that as I was preparing to go to Dar es Salaam and serve as ambassador, I read what he had written about the modern embassy and the modern uses of diplomatic power. Senator Lugar made a tremendous contribution to scholarship around development diplomacy. So clearly, that's a loss.
And as people are trying to make up their minds about who they want to see in the White House a year from now, I know that your group has put together something called the Impact 2012 campaign. You want to talk about that for a moment?
Oh, yeah, and I appreciate it. Impact 2012 is our effort to reach out and to let people know where the candidates stand on issues of development, diplomacy, smart power, strictly bipartisan. In fact, our effort is headed up by Tom Ridge and Madeleine Albright, both sides of the aisle. But we put on our website, USGLC.org, information that we've heard from the candidates, what they have said, issue papers that they have released, not just for the presidential race, so that's the main focus, but also for some of the key Senate races around the country. So it really is a useful guide for voters, I think, as they go to make up their minds about who should be leading in this country.
Okay, and that is, once again, what's the address? USGLC.org, correct?
You got it. Perfect.
All right. Well, Mark Green, we appreciate you once again spending time with us on POTUS this morning. Thanks.
Thank you.